Hello and welcome to this week's Boardroom Buddies podcast. So I'm not quite sure where to start with my guest this week. I'm a bit in awe of her, to be honest. I guess the first question is to kind of frame it really is, have you realised that your website isn't selling enough for you or not selling at all? You know who your target client is, but when you come to put it into a website, it's not communicating your brand and your message in the right way. This week's guest might be able to offer you some solutions around that and give you some pointers. So worth a listen. So I'll now talk a little bit more about my guest this week, who is the amazing Josie Gamble of Gamble Designs. And she is amazing, and she doesn't know it because, well, when I started to read her website page about all the things that she does and has achieved, it's like, oh my goodness, I'm going to take several minutes to do this. So first of all, Josie is a creative entrepreneur. She's a designer and she's a speaker, and recently a speaker on TEDx Wolverhampton, which is fabulous. 2022, she was listed amongst the Telegraph NatWest top 100 female entrepreneurs to watch. And in 2023, which is this year, she won a Midlands Enterprise Award Best Brand Design Agency. She's a trustee for Christians in Media and frequently speaks and comments on the Premier Christian Radio. She has a first-class honours degree in industrial product design. So I will ask you about that, Josie, and how that is different from other product design. And has also overcome personal challenges such as dyslexia and wearing hearing aids. So we'll get to talk about a little bit about that. And she actually started a business when she was pregnant with her first child. And as if that wasn't enough, she is also creator of the Christian Creative Network and the Christian Creative Directory. So after all of that, I think I need a drink.
It's really weird hearing all of that about me. It's like, oh, I've done a few things.
Hello, Josie, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Jackie. Thank you for having me.
Right. Josie, I've got a lot of questions I'm going to fire at you. First of all, why did you start a design business?
Good question. So I've always known I was creative and enjoyed the creative subjects at school. I guess at school, primary, it's art and painting, and secondary school, you might get a little bit more into kind of designing technology. And those subjects, they always made me come alive, and I excelled at them. And you couldn't get me out of the workshops. So I've always known that. I then went on after my A levels. In fact, I did maths, physics, and art as an A level because I wanted to be an architect. But they got put off by that when I saw the boring jobs that they have to do, like pinning walls together and fixing gutters and things like that. I thought, actually, no, I don't want that side of things. So I did art foundation course for a year, which you get to explore all the different types of design and art, and much less restrictive than at school, which is painting and drawing. It was there my tutors said that I would be really suited to industrial product design. And so I did a design degree here at Wolverhampton University. I loved it. Again, you couldn't get me out of the studios. Graduated first class honours. I was invited to then lecture back at the university. So I then lectured there for 7 years on industrial product design and the interior design course. I'm not an interior designer. I just taught three-dimensional modelling with the computers. So I've always been in the arts and design, and so it was a real natural, and it was a natural progression, but I did kind of feel pushed into it. So I'd always said that when I started a family, I wanted to work from home, but when it actually came to it, I had 2 jobs for 7 years, lecturing at the university, and I worked for a charity, and quite by chance they both came to an end at exactly the same time as I was pregnant with my first child. We hadn't told anybody because it was still under the 12 weeks. And so I was in a position where I was pregnant, no job. I frantically went out looking for work. But by the time I had interviews, I was showing. And whilst people can't discriminate, it's quite hard to employ a lady who's about to imminently give birth. So I kind of always said I wanted to work from home. And it would be design related. And I knew I wanted to kind of even at university, I thought I'm going to go the kind of computer route because I can work from home on a
Right.
computer. Um,
Yes.
I had the choice. We could have gone a maker route where you become more of a designer maker,
Hmm.
but I couldn't picture myself working from home with a studio and
Mm.
metal filings on the floor with the baby crawling around.
No.
So, so in one sense, I always knew I was going to go this route, but in another sense, I felt quite kind of pushed into it.
Yeah.
It wasn't comfortable.
Yeah.
But that was 16 years ago, and I haven't looked back.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So actually, you started your business the same year that we started our main business as well. So
Yeah, good year, a good year to start businesses.
yeah. So I saw from your website that you industrial product design. So how is that different from product design? I
Well,
didn't know they were
it
different.
is product design. I think even when I was doing my degree, the actual degree itself had two names because people didn't know what it was. So the official title was industrial product design, but it was also called woods, metals, plastics. And essentially, your graphic design is more two-dimensional, whereas product design, it's anything that potentially as a product to sell. And because we worked in the workshops, we made, we worked with plastics and resins and we'd make models and maquettes. So if you can understand how something is made, you can then design it for a manufacturing purpose. So it was more industrial orientated.
Oh, I see.
After our first year, we could go industrial
Mm,
or craft. And that's where, if you went craft, you would become more of a maker crafter, more of an artisan maker. Whereas the industrial was with more kind of mass production in mind. So, and in that route, there was a lot of computer generated three-dimensional designing. So we'd model it three-dimensionally and do animations and render it. And I was drawn to the computer side of it. I love making. You can't stop me making, but I didn't want to go that route for a living. I really
right.
was attracted by the computer side of things. So I
Yeah.
guess that's the industrial part of it, I guess.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. But of course, that's not really what you do in your business. Your business is about helping clients to communicate what they stand for, I guess,
Yes.
in their business.
Yeah, so in what I've done for the last 16 years is brand, graphic, and web design. So I think with creative subjects, a lot of the skills are transferable. So the same research I'd need to research a product if there was a gap in the market is the same kind of research you're researching for your clients. Well, what are the gaps they're trying to fill? The communication of that is the same skills I learned with so I work in Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign. I use websites. So it's design and communication, but maybe not with the making.
Mhm.
So a lot of creative people are quite good at transferring into a different discipline because it takes the same eye, the same appreciation. A lot of musicians are maybe painters or artists and
Yes.
photographers because it kind of it's all the same skill set, but maybe a slightly different outworking of the skill.
Right. 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 So, what are the sort of things that you do for your clients then?
So I help them with their brand identity. So it's all everybody knows they need a brand, but not everybody knows what brand is. So
Mhm.
I landed on a phrase, I can't remember who said it a few years ago, and I use it all the time because it just kind of puts it in simple terms. Your brand is how people talk about you when you're not there.
Right.
And all marketing is teaching people how to talk about you. So if you were to ask 10 people what your business is and you got 10 different answers, you've got a weak brand. If you ask 10 people and they gave you the same answer, you've got a really strong brand because you've been able to communicate it in a
Right.
way that others can communicate it on. And that's all I do with my clients, but I do that through visual. So the brand is a visual identity, but it's also the tone of voice in the language. It's the wording you use. It's understanding who you're trying to reach, who is your audience, because we can't reach everyone. So
Mhm.
so I take them through a whole process. And at the end, they'll have a visual identity, which would include a logo, um, the colors, the tone, the imagery. And then from that, we can produce flyers and brochures and signage. And from that, we can produce a website, which then communicates all of that brand in the best possible way to the right audience with call to action so that they've got something to do, not just looking at the site that might be pretty.
Mm.
It needs to be found. So it's kind of, it encompasses a lot of stuff, but it really is drawing on all my visual design and art background.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So the whole kind of brand package, um, do you help them with websites and brochures and things like that?
Yes, yes. So I build websites. I build exclusively in WordPress. There's lots of different platforms, but that's the one I landed on and have just loved, and I just work with that. So I will buy the domain names, sort out the hosting, work with the client on what pages they're going to have, what's going
Mm.
to look like on the page, and I build it. So I do the whole thing. I'm a sole trader, so I just pour everything into it, and I love it because, particularly for someone who's starting up a business, until they can see it, it still feels very much in their head. And all of
Yes.
a sudden, when you go, here's your website, they're like, oh, I'm a real business.
Yeah.
And they'll say it's like Christmas, like opening up this thing. Like when they get their business cards delivered, they're like, oh, this is me. And it almost validates what they've seen for so long in their head. But then to see it visualized, it's like, oh, that's it. This is me. And then it just gives them that platform to build their business from. Because
Yes.
all businesses is communicating a service, a product, a story, but they have the design and the branding and the website. It's that's the vehicle that delivers the message.
Yes.
So I've always said I'm really nosy. I love talking to business owners and finding out about businesses, because
Yes.
there's so many websites I've built that I'm like, I never even knew that existed. And so I just like talking to people and helping.
Mhm.
I design solutions for them. And yeah, that's kind of what I do.
So you talked about printing there. So do you work with other people to,
Yes.
collaborate with
Ye-
other
Yes.
professions too?
So I'll work with photographers because we
Yeah.
need great imagery for any flyers or websites. I work with copywriters who are word wizards. What I find is most people who are good at words aren't good at images, and most people who are good at images aren't good at words. So we kind of need each
Yes.
other. I
Yeah.
work with programmers and developers if there's real complex back-end programming that needs doing for a particular function on a website.
Oh,
I work
right.
with
Okay.
drone photographers if we're
Oh,
to
right.
the website and we need drone photography, animators, motion graphics.
Oh, gosh. Oh,
So yes, I collaborate with lots of different other creative services to kind of pull it all together,
yeah.
uh, and deliver for the client.
Yeah. And presumably you'll work with a marketeer then as well.
Yes, sometimes I would tend to, maybe with a marketer, I tend to maybe pass them on as a referral, because it's slightly then stretching into something else that it's not in the initial deliverable. So marketing is more the ongoing, and so I might produce a brand style guide that then gets passed on to the marketer, and then the
Yeah.
client will work with them moving forward. And many people say, oh, could you do my social media marketing? I'm like, that's a completely different ball game.
Yeah.
I have enough trouble doing my own, but I'll set up their social media visuals so it all looks consistent across every platform, set them
Okay.
up, I can train them on it. But it's very much the
So,
upfront bit and then move on. I'm not a maintainer. I've learned that about myself.
yeah. 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 Oh, brilliant. Okay. So we touched on in the intro about the challenges that you've overcome on a personal level. So you said that you were hearing aids. So that's been with you all your life?
Yes, so I'm 45 and I've worn hearing aids probably for 40 years. Yeah, so in primary school, I started wearing them. I think we're not entirely sure nowadays. My daughters popped out and they stick something in their ear and they can test the hearing straight away. With
Yeah.
me, they discovered at my 3-year check that I wasn't hearing everything, and they think it was probably an ear infection at some point. I used to have quite a lot of ear infections as a child. So it's not hereditary. So nobody else in my family has any hearing
No.
loss. So yes, there's natural things that come with that. I
Mhm.
get, with wearing glasses, they missed up.
Yes.
With wearing hearing aids, if I'm outside and the wind is rushing past, I can hear the howling wind. So there's little things that you just have to
Mm.
overcome. In fact, I was on a business call last night and my battery ran out on one of my hearing aids. I literally had to say, I'm really sorry. I just need to change my hearing aid battery. But I think with anything like that, I've had to get over myself, get over any embarrassment. When I was younger, it was, I'd wear my hair down and didn't want
Yeah.
people to see. Uh,
Yes.
and I think part of getting older is you just you're more comfortable in your own skin.
Yes.
You develop the language to talk around it. And I think as a younger woman, I was still struggling with the language of
Mm.
being comfortable with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I can talk about it and it's who I am. It's just part of my conversation. It doesn't bother me. There are challenges when answering phones or sitting in cars. I hear everything and I can't always hear the person in the front if I'm sat in the back. But I
Yeah.
know that, so I can make provision for it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And now you can get hearing aids as well that'll answer your phone for you.
I'd love a personal hearing aid PA that does all my work for me. That would be nice.
Yeah. So was that it was more a personal kind of thing that you struggled with when you were, kind of growing up and as you've matured as a woman?
Yeah, I think so. But I think it's like with hearing, you don't know what you miss. So you don't know
Oh,
what you've missed. And there was probably within my education, I'd often have to sit at the front of the class. But again, you don't know what you miss. So I'm sure it would have affected my schooling in ways that I may never know. And that maybe there's a layer of confidence that it kind of knocked growing
right.
up. But I think anything like that just teaches you resilience. And
Yes.
you
Mm.
we face things in life, and whether it's wearing hearing aids or something else, there's always stuff that we need to break through with and
Yes.
have that resilience. So yeah, it's
Mm.
I've had to kind of come to terms with and use as a strength, not a weakness.
Yes. Yeah. And is that the same for the dyslexia?
Yes, although I'm slightly of the opinion that because a lot of creative people are dyslexic, and I actually think that is what makes us good at being creative.
Yes.
So I've actually never seen it as a disability in any sense, in that sense, because my brain just works in a certain way that makes me really good with spatial and visual awareness. So I think when I was at school, it was quite comforting to have the understanding that, oh, that's why I do certain things.
Right.
And when I was at school, I got extra time in my exams and I got a computer and I was happy to have that. But
Mm.
I never saw it as a disability, even to the point where I was at a conference recently and someone I knew, just as a throwaway comment, said that they had a PA and that they got them through the Access to Business grant because they're dyslexic. And I was like, well, I've heard of access to business, but I thought, well, I'm not disabled in any way. I don't even see my hearing loss as a disability.
Mm.
I would love to have a virtual assistant paid for by access to business. Because actually, my inbox is in my email can sometimes get a little bit overflowing. And I know I'm slower at reading.
Uh-huh.
If someone sends me reams of text,
Mm.
I don't bother reading. I just ring them up. I could read it, but I'm just slow. So again, you don't know what you don't know. This is just how I've always lived my life.
Mm.
But there must be things that it kind of
Mm.
I'm slow at writing emails to people and maybe things like that. But I'm phenomenal at visual
Yeah.
identity. So
Yeah.
it's just understanding how my brain works, and I'm still, even now as an adult, still understanding that.
Yeah. I think because you talked about, as you mature and you've learned resilience and also you're more comfortable in your own skin. I think that you also learn, I think, that it's how something is perceived. And you talked about looking at it as if it's a bonus, not something to be concerned about. So I thought, yeah, that's really
Yeah,
positive. Yeah.
yeah. I do think how you perceive something it's crucial.
Yeah.
So I kind of see it as a superpower.
Yeah. I mean, we're so used to, aren't we, talking about, like someone with hearing problems as disabled, and that kind of, yeah.
But
And
I think, it's interesting now being a mum and having daughters who are in secondary school, to my eldest two, and I see a lot of my traits in my eldest daughter. And so we're kind of working through that with her and seeing how actually, so she's pretty much identical to me in that her spelling is rubbish, her reading is slow, but she's academically very bright, but just doesn't always answer the questions in exams at the right speed. And so
yeah,
I'm kind of revisiting it all now through my children.
yes.
I just remember thinking that, if a doctor can't draw, no one says that's a problem. But if an artist can't do a bit of maths, all of a sudden that's a huge problem
Yeah.
because there is a lower value of creativity than the core English and maths. So our education system is set up for a particular type of academia. And actually, there are different forms of intelligence. And
Yes.
and I don't know what the solution is, but I know that if you don't fit into that academic solution at school, it can be quite crushing. And I see a lot of adults say, "Oh, I'm not creative." And just because an art teacher said they couldn't draw, but
Yes.
actually, as soon as somebody says, no, but you are, and you can, all of a sudden, they change their perception and they can do something that they just shut down because of a negative comment. So
Mm.
it's kind of going a little bit off on a tangent there, but it's
No,
quite
no, it's
interesting.
interesting. Yeah. No, I get it totally, because I've never thought that I was creative, but a few years ago went on a silk painting course and did several as a result, and hand painted my own silk scarves, and I absolutely loved it. It was really great. And yeah, I'm not very creative, I don't think, but years and years ago I could paint faces, so I would be able to apply makeup, and I used to do lots and lots of wedding makeups and all those kind of things, and got certificates in it, and
Yeah.
years ago, so I think there is a creativity in people, isn't there? How it manifests itself, you know. So yeah. So do you think your mindset has been really important to you over the years? Because, I've got like 2 sheets of notes on you, and it almost fills one A4 sheet with the kind of all the things you have achieved. And so, you're in no way disabled, or what's the word, disadvantaged, I don't think, because you've gone on to achieve such a lot.
I do wonder sometimes if I might be high performing ADHD. I don't know. I've always been quite prolific, and I think I always have lots of it's a strength and a weakness, but I tend to thrive when I'm got a lot of things on, and whether that's my coping strategy of allowing different parts of my brain to be active or doing different things. I've always done it. I look back, all through my schooling, I've just always done lots of things. And so on the surface, it looks like I can do a lot. But then with that, I've had to just be very organized and learn some things. Good is good enough. That was a good lesson my husband taught me. I think particularly women want to do everything to the best of our ability, and I do,
Yeah,
but sometimes good is good enough.
yeah, I get
um
that.
yeah, and so there's things I've had to get quicker at, better at, more efficient at. Being a mum, you get sucked of all time. I can do
Oh
more
gosh, yeah.
5 minutes with the Hoover now than I could before I had kids. You just learn to use your time more efficiently.
Mm, yeah,
You always make a priority, you make time for what's important.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
always want to make time for my family
yeah,
and the important things in life.
yeah. So tell me about the Christian Creative Network and the directory that you created, because this is just another kind of businessy thing that you just, in your spare time thought you'd do.
Well, it's taking more of my spare time now. But so when I started my business, it was me working from home, and I loved it. But it's very isolating. And I remember when my youngest was more in full-time nursery, I had a bit more capacity. I don't think you ever quite get your time back as a parent, but I definitely have more capacity. I started going to a business network. It was called Networking Mummies. It was just mums who work from home. And so I was drawn to that like-mindedness, being around others who would understand the struggles of being a mum with small kids. I was genuinely surprised how much I grew in that time, how my business grew, but I grew and I gained friends. And so
Mm.
I kind of was introduced to this world of networking.
Yeah.
And it was very grassroots and it was once a month. But after about 3.5 years, I felt really impressed that we needed this kind of network for Christians who were creative. So I worked with the director of that network and kind of we launched this model, Christian Creative Networks. It's essentially a business networking model. And the vision was to champion creativity in the church. Because there was a time when the church was leading the way with, stained glass, fine art, sculpture, hymn, and people would look to the church for this wonderful creative excellence. I don't look around now and see that. So there was this discrepancy, and there were kind of historical reasons for that. But the point was to get together local creatives. And so we have 7 branches in the UK, and they have a branch leader, and they gather together local Christian creatives to network, to support and encourage. And the vision was always 3-pronged: to have a network, a directory, and recognition awards. We're not there with the awards, but in 2021, during lockdown, I'd attracted seed funding to build the Christian Creative Directory. And so it's a sister project. They both have the same mission, but the directory simply, creatives can sign up, create their own listing, and it connects these Christian creatives with the wider church,
Right.
businesses and charities that need them. And if you're a church and you need a new website, there's a real benefit in having someone who's empathetic to the language and the audience and the culture. But as a Christian, and I'm a designer, I don't in any of my marketing say I'm a Christian. So we kind of begged the question, well, where do people who need a Christian creative find them? Because we're not marketing ourselves as Christian. So that's simply the gap in the market. So it's very niche, but that's the gap that we've tried to fill rather with the directory. And we advertise jobs and opportunities on there, creative jobs and opportunities as well. So that's kind of the network and the directory, and hopefully in the future awards.
That's brilliant. Oh, okay. So have you got some top tips for us then, for listeners who are not sure that they're getting enough return from their website? They might have a logo already if they've got a website and got some of this marketing stuff in the background. So have you got some tips?
Yeah, I guess particularly for websites, is that it needs to optimize for devices. So a lot of traffic nowadays is on mobile devices. So if your website doesn't optimize and reformat for your device, then no one's going to look at it. If you've got content on there that when you started, you went, oh, we're going to blog and we do this and we do that, and you've not done anything since, then I would probably take it off, because it just shows that you've not done anything. Less is more. Understand who your key audience is, because no business can serve everyone. There is a target for every business, and you have to understand the problem you're solving and answer that question first and foremost on the site. A lot of clients come to me and they'll say, we do this, but really you've got to talk about yourself from the consumer's point of view. What problem are you solving for them? And what is the answer they're looking for? And so rather than saying, I build websites, I could say, I design solutions, because they need solutions. Everyone knows they need a website. They know, you can find products, but what particular solution are you solving? So that is crucial. And then make the main thing. Don't get distracted. Test in the marketplace. We think everything has to be perfect when it goes out. It doesn't. And websites evolve. I've built a website recently for a client that it's their second version, because the first version, their business was starting out. Since then, business is different. Everything evolves. There's supply and demand. You don't always know who you are when you start, but more into it you do. So just allow things to evolve with you. We live in a world now where we used to talk about a landscape changing. I don't think there's any landscapes anymore. It's all a seascape. Everything's changing so much. The world, the economy, the COVID, everything changes so fast. So it's more important to just do something than nothing. and work your way along as you go. I do think, though, buy cheap, buy twice. If you want to do something well, it is worth investing in. A website, it can be a cost. A brand, it can be a cost. But it's actually, if you view it as an investment, because it will, a good brand, a good website, good communication will return on that investment. And actually, a lot of businesses come to me because they've maybe tried to do it themselves. And there's a place for self-build sites for doing something just to get going. But then the next level might be that they come to myself and we evolve what they've already got and just take it to the next level. That's kind of just even thinking like that can kind of help you if you're running a business.
Yeah, because usually when you start, your finances are a bit tight.
Yeah.
So you might only be able to afford to, put together a page, and you might do it yourself and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then as things start to develop, it's good to kind of update and things like that, isn't it? Yeah.
It is, yes. And I would say in website terms, 3 to 4 years is a long time.
Yeah.
And businesses grow, evolve in that time. Having an understanding or a budget for SEO helps, search engine optimization, because you can have the most beautiful looking website, but it's a bit like having a shop in the desert. If no one can get to it, doesn't matter how nice your shop looks, they need to be able to find it. So the optimization of your site it's just what, even if you don't really understand it, it's worth just allocating a budget for it. And there's a lot of stuff online that you can learn yourself. I try and be as generous as I can with my information and helping clients, because ultimately I'm in the business of helping people, and it just happened to do it through creative means.
Yes.
But it's so rewarding every business solves a problem. It's so rewarding to see that you can bring a solution to someone, and especially for a business, if they're just starting, for so long it's all been in their head. But when they see their business either on a business card or a flyer or a website, then you go, oh, I'm a real business.
Yeah.
And so I love working with sole traders because I can really make a big influence. But I work with, blue chip companies as well. And it's a different sphere of influence. I just like helping people.
Brilliant. I think we could talk all afternoon.
I could talk with you all afternoon. Should we stay talking?
Josie, it's been really interesting. Thank you. And thank you for sharing all that about, the challenges that you've overcome and the Christian Creative Network and what you do to help find the solutions, to produce the solutions for people. So it's been really interesting about that and design. So thank you. So Boardroom Buddies listeners, thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Please press the subscribe button and then you'll know when the next ones are out. And as you can see from Josie's background, we have a Christmas tree in the background, so you'll know what time of year it is. So I hope when this podcast goes out, it will be, in fact, after Christmas. But we hope that you've had a safe and healthy and wonderful Christmas in this year. So thanks a lot. Till next time.